I stared at my phone, the screen glowing in the dim light of my apartment. The message sat there like a neon sign of betrayal, the kind that leaves a permanent afterimage on your mind. "We gave your spot to Lily. She's more fun?" My mother had texted casually, like she hadn't just erased me from the family trip I had planned. I replied with just 2 words, "Got it." But behind that calm response, a storm brewed. This wasn't just a slight, it was a final straw. I had spent months organizing that trip to Japan for my father's 60th birthday, poring over itineraries, comparing flight options, booking hotels, even upgrading their flights so they could stretch their legs in premium economy. I had gone cheap on myself, thinking it was the kind of sacrifice a good son made. But clearly, I had miscalculated my role in this family. I wasn't the beloved son or the golden child. I was just the convenient wallet, the reliable doormat. The worst part, I had seen it coming. Years of being the family's financial crutch had prepared me for this exact kind of betrayal. I had covered. My brother Kyle's tuition paid his rent when he dropped out of his 2nd semester, and even footed the bill for his surprise Las Vegas wedding, which he swore he'd pay back someday. "You make more than enough," my mother had always said. "Your brother just needs a little help to get on his feet." But when is enough? Truly enough? I had played my part as the responsible son, the silent sponsor of everyone else's happiness. Yet when I finally tried to claim a piece of that joy for myself, they cut me out without a second thought. The turning point came that night when I looked at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I barely recognized the tired eyes staring back. I had become a ghost in my own life, the forgotten son, the afterthought. But not anymore. I opened my laptop, the cold light flickering across my clenched jaw. They wanted to cut me out, fine. I would erase myself from their lives in a way they'd never forget. First, I logged into the travel site where I had booked the entire trip, flights, hotels, the whole $9.400 package, and hit cancel. I didn't care that it was non-refundable. I had paid for it. I would kill it. Next, I changed the locks on the family home. It was in my name after all. They had been living there rent-free for 5 years, treating it like their personal palace while I scraped by in a small apartment, working double shifts to keep the lights on for them. No more, I called a locksmith, paid extra for emergency service, and had every key reworked. When they returned, they would find their kingdom locked behind unfamiliar metal. Finally, I logged into my bank account. Kyle's car payment, canceled. My mother's credit card, blocked. I went through every automatic payment, every little financial favor I had set up over the years, and wiped them clean. If they thought they could toss me aside so easily, they would learn just how dependent they had become on the son. They dismissed as not fun. As I sat back, the weight of years of resentment slipping off my shoulders, I felt a strange, powerful calm. I wasn't just taking my life back, I was reclaiming my respect. They had taught me one thing after all. Family isn't just about blood, it's about who stands by you, who respects you, and who truly values you. And for the first time in years, I felt free. The morning after canceling the trip, I felt something I hadn't in years, a deep, bone-chilling calm. It was the kind of quiet that comes after a storm, when the air feels sharp and the world seems clearer. I sipped my coffee, staring out my apartment window as the city slowly came to life below. I imagined my parents and Kyle halfway across the world, oblivious to the chaos that awaited them. I almost felt bad. Almost. It didn't take long for the texts to start. First, it was my mom typing with the frantic energy of someone who had just realized their meal ticket might be slipping away. "Mom. Hey honey, we tried checking into the hotel and there's an issue with the reservation. Can you call them? They're saying it's canceled." Weird, right? I let my phone buzz on the counter as I refilled my mug. Let her squirm a bit. Then an hour later, another one. "Mom. Okay, this is serious. The hotel is saying we have no rooms and our cards aren't working. Did something happen with the booking? Call me ASAP." I leaned back, the steam from my coffee warming my face, and smiled for the first time in weeks. They had no idea the nightmare they had walked into. Then, predictably, Kyle jumped in. "Kyle. Bro, what the hell? The hotel says our reservation was canceled and I just got an alert that my car payment bounced. Can you check your bank or something?" Kyle, forever the golden child, the baby bird that never learned to fly, because I had always been there catching him before he hit the ground. I imagined him panicking in the lobby of a Tokyo hotel, bags piled around his feet, his girlfriend Lily pouting beside him, trying to figure out why the world suddenly felt less accommodating. I took another long sip of coffee, letting the bitterness fill my mouth. I glanced at the message again, then set my phone to Do Not Disturb. They could figure it out themselves. For once in their lives, they could solve a problem without leaning on me. As the day passed, I expected more messages, maybe a frantic call or two, but my phone remained eerily silent. It was almost disappointing. I checked my notifications once, twice, but nothing. Just the quiet hum of the city outside my window and the gentle tick of the clock on my wall. Then, around midnight, my phone lit up. I picked it up, expecting another desperate plea, but it was a single chilling line from my father, a man of few words even in crisis. "Dad, call me now." I felt a flicker of something. Not fear exactly, but the kind of unease that creeps in when you know a long-buried truth is about to surface. I thought about ignoring it, letting them twist a bit longer, but something made me swipe to answer. Maybe I wanted to hear his voice crack. Maybe I wanted to confirm that I had really broken the unspoken contract we had all silently agreed to over the years. That I would always be the dependable one, the fixer, the silent paying ghost of the family. I hit the call button, leaning back against my kitchen counter as the line rang once, twice, then connected. "Dad." There was a pause on the other end, a sharp intake of breath. When he spoke, his voice was tighter than I'd ever heard it. "What the hell have you done?" I felt my jaw clench 1,000 unsaid words, and years of resentment lining up like soldiers in my mind ready to charge. "What I should have done years ago," I replied. My voice steady. "I cut you off." Silence. The kind that stretches between tectonic plates before a catastrophic shift. "What are you talking about?" he finally said, his voice a low, angry growl. "You canceled our trip, blocked our cards, changed the damn locks. What the hell is wrong with you?" I laughed, a dry, hollow sound that echoed in my empty kitchen. "What's wrong with me? Maybe it's that I've been supporting you all for years. Maybe it's that you took my kindness, my money, and my loyalty and repaid it with betrayal. Maybe it's that you cut me out of my own father's birthday trip because what I'm not fun enough. Are you seriously that clueless, Dad?" I heard him exhale sharply, the kind of sound a man makes when he's trying to find his footing on suddenly unstable ground. "This isn't like you," he said, his voice quieter now, almost pleading. "We're family, you can't just abandon us like this." I felt a sharp, unexpected pang in my chest. The old wound, the one that never fully healed, but I crushed it, forced it back into the dark corner where I had kept all my disappointments, my silent heartbreaks, my unspoken grief. "Family." I spat, my grip tightening on the phone. "Is that what you call people who use you, drain you, and then toss you aside the moment you stop being convenient? If that's family, then maybe I'm better off alone." He tried to say something, a stammered protest, but I ended the call, my hand shaking as I dropped the phone onto the counter. For a long moment, I just stood there, the sound of my own ragged breathing filling the silence of my apartment. I had crossed a line, burned a bridge that had stood for decades, and there was no going back now. But as I looked around my tiny, cluttered kitchen, I felt something new, a strange, unfamiliar sense of weightlessness, like a man who had finally cut loose a chain he had worn for too long. For the first time in my life, I felt free. The days that followed were quiet, almost eerily so. I had expected a wave of angry texts, maybe a few guilt-laden voicemails, but my phone stayed stubbornly silent. I checked my notifications obsessively, half relieved, half disappointed. Each time my screen lit up with nothing but spam and work emails. Then, on the third day, my phone finally buzzed. I picked it up without looking, half expecting some automated scam call. "Hello." Silence. Then the sharp inhale of someone who hadn't planned what to say. "It's Mom." I leaned back against my kitchen counter, feeling the cool granite edge press into my lower back. I had been bracing for this call, rehearsing the words I'd fling back at her, the sharp barbs I'd carefully honed in my head. But now that she was actually on the line, I found myself strangely calm, almost detached. Like I was watching the whole thing play out from a distance. "Oh, now you call?" I said, letting the sarcasm slip through. "Figured you'd just message me when the Wi-Fi went out." She hesitated, her voice dropping into that familiar performative whisper she used whenever she wanted to seem like the wronged party. "What's going on with you?" "We've been trying to reach you for days. We just got back in the house. What have you done?" I almost laughed. She still hadn't put it together, hadn't realized that the locks weren't some administrative error or a mistake by the landlord. "Oh, the house," I replied, my voice deliberately light. "Yeah, I figured it was time for a change, fresh start and all that." There was a long, painful silence on the line, and I could practically see her clutching her phone, her carefully manicured nails tapping against the cheap plastic case she had refused to upgrade for years. "You can't just do that," she said, her voice trembling now. We've lived there for years. You can't just lock us out like some strangers. I felt my jaw tighten, the old familiar anger bubbling up from that deep, dark place I had tried to bury. Strangers? That's funny, Mom, because that's exactly how you've treated me. Like some faceless ATM, like a convenience store that never closes, always stocked with whatever you need. Don't say that, she whispered, her voice cracking. We're family. You don't just throw family away. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Family. Is that what we are? Because last I checked, you replaced me on a family trip I paid for. You took my money, my time, my effort, and then cut me out like a bad scene in one of those cheap, straight-to-DVD movies you pretend to hate but secretly love. That's not fair, she snapped, the whine in her voice becoming sharper. You've always been so dramatic. We just wanted Kyle to have a good time? You're the one who made this a big deal. I felt the laugh bubble up before I could stop it. A sharp, bitter sound that cut through the quiet of my apartment. A good time? You mean like the one I paid for? Like the birthday trip I spent months planning? The one you ripped away from me because I'm not fun enough? She hesitated, clearly, struggling to find the right words, the ones that would pull me back into the fold, wrap me in the suffocating blanket of family obligation. We didn't mean it like that, she finally said, her tone softening. The old manipulation slipping back into her voice. You know how Kyle is. He's special. He just needed a little support, a little encouragement. You're his brother. You're supposed to look out for him. There it was, the guilt trip. The same old tired tactic she had used for years. The one that had kept me pouring money, time, and emotional energy into a family that treated me like an afterthought. Funny how you always expect me to look out for him, I said, my voice turning colder, sharper. But when have you ever looked out for me? When have you ever considered what I might want, what I might need? Another silence, this one heavier. The kind that stretches out like a shadow, dark and suffocating. We never asked you to pay for everything, she said, her voice barely a whisper now. You chose to do that? I closed my eyes, the words hitting me like a slap. Of course. It was my fault. As always, I had chosen to be the responsible one. The one who picked up the pieces, who patched the holes in our sinking family ship. You're right, I said, my voice hollow. I chose to help. I chose to keep you all afloat, but I'm choosing something else now. What does that mean? She asked, her voice suddenly sharp, the panic creeping back in. It means I'm done, I replied, each word cutting like a knife. It means I'm not your safety net anymore. It means you figure it out yourselves. I ended the call before she could respond, my heart hammering in my chest, my hands trembling as I dropped the phone onto the counter. For a long moment, I just stood there, the silence in my apartment suddenly deafening. I felt a strange, overwhelming sense of relief, like I had finally cut a cord that had been wrapped around my throat for years. And as I took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill my lungs, I realized something. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't guilty or ashamed or broken. I was free. The fallout from my last conversation with Mom came faster than I expected. I had barely hung up when my phone buzzed again, this time with a call from my brother Kyle. I let it ring, watching his name flash across my screen like a warning. He called twice more before switching to text. Kyle. Dude, what the hell is going on? Mom's crying. Dad's pissed, and Lily is freaking out. Why did you block our cards? Why can't we get into the house? Call me now. I took a deep breath, leaning back against the cool kitchen counter, letting the sharp edge dig into my lower back as a reminder that I was still here, still standing. They had taken so much from me, money, time, peace, but not my sanity, not anymore. I flicked my phone onto Do Not Disturb and dropped it face down on the counter. I wasn't going to let Kyle's tantrums pull me back into that toxic cycle. He had always been the golden child, the favorite, the one everyone bent over backward to protect, and I had been his silent, suffering shadow, always there to clean up his messes. Not this time. An hour later, my doorbell rang, the harsh, grating buzz cutting through the stillness of my apartment. I froze, my pulse spiking. The old fear surging up before I forced it back down, I walked to the door, peering through the peephole. There they were. All three of them. My parents, gray and frazzled, and Kyle, his face twisted in a scowl, his fist raised as if he was about to start pounding on the door like some kind of spoiled child. I took a deep breath, the cold air burning my lungs, and then slowly, deliberately unlocked the door. I pulled it open just enough to meet their eyes. Surprise, I said, my voice flat, my face a mask of calm. Kyle surged forward, but I held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. What the hell is this? He spat, his eyes wild. Why can't we get into the house? Why are our cards blocked? Are you seriously trying to bankrupt us or something? I leaned against the door frame, folding my arms over my chest. No, I'm just finally treating you the way you've treated me for years, like a disposable resource. My mother's face crumpled, her eyes filling with the kind of tears she had always used to manipulate me to pull me back into the fold whenever I had tried to break free. You don't mean that, she whispered, her voice trembling. We're family. We just had a misunderstanding. Let's talk about this. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that echoed off the bare walls of my tiny entryway. A misunderstanding? You mean like cutting me out of a trip I paid for, like treating me like a walking ATM for years? Like using my money to spoil Kyle while telling me I should be grateful for the privilege? My father usually, the silent one, the passive bystander in every family crisis, stepped forward, his jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists at his sides. You're being ridiculous, he growled, his voice low and dangerous. You can't just shut us out like this. We're your parents. We raised you. I felt a flicker of the old guilt, the old fear, but I crushed it before it could take hold. Raised me. I repeated, my voice sharp. Is that what you call it? Because from where I stand, you didn't raise me. You drained me. You used me. You leaned on me while you propped up Kyle, your golden boy, your precious son who can do no wrong. Kyle scoffed, crossing his arms over his chest, his jaw jutting out in that familiar, petulant way I had always hated. Oh, so this is just about your petty jealousy then? You're mad because mom and dad like me more. Grow up, man. Something inside me snapped. I felt it, a clean, sharp break, like the final crack in a dam before the water comes rushing through. Jealousy. I said, my voice shaking with barely contained fury. You think this is about jealousy? You think I'm just mad because they like you more? No, Kyle, I'm mad because I've been your crutch for years. I'm mad because I paid for your education, covered your rent, co-signed your car, and what did I get in return? Disrespect, disregard, dismissal. Kyle's face flushed, his jaw working as he struggled to find a response, his eyes flicking to our parents for support. But they just stood there silent, their faces pale, their eyes wide, the weight of my words hitting them like a physical blow. I'm done, I said, my voice firm, my gaze locked on Kyle's. Done paying for your mistakes, done cleaning up your messes, done letting you all bleed me dry. I stepped back, my hand on the edge of the door. You have 2 weeks to find a new place. The house is in my name and I'm raising the rent. If you can't afford it, you can leave. My mother let out a choked sob, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes filling with fresh tears. You can't do this, she whispered, her voice broken. You're our son. We're your family. I met her gaze, my heart hardening, my resolve solidifying. No, Mom. I was your son. But you made me a stranger, and now you can deal with the consequences. I slammed the door, the sound echoing through the small apartment, the vibrations running up my arm like an electric shock. I leaned back against the cool metal, my heart racing, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. And as I stood there alone in the silence I had reclaimed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power, control, freedom. I had cut the cord, severed the chains, and for the first time I wasn't afraid of the fallout. I was ready for it. After slamming the door on my parents and Kyle, I half expected them to pound on it, to shout and demand I open up to play the old guilt cards they had used to control me for so long. But instead, silence. I waited, my heart still racing, my breath coming in short, sharp bursts, my hand still pressed against the cool metal of the door. Then I heard it, the muffled, panicked whispers just beyond the thin barrier between us. My mother, her voice trembling, words spilling out in a frantic rush. What do we do now? He's serious, Paul. I know that look. He's really done this time. Kyle's voice cut through, sharp and angry. This is his fault. He's overreacting. He's just trying to punish us. I leaned my head back against the door, closing my eyes, letting their panicked voices wash over me. For the first time in my life, their fear didn't paralyze me. It didn't fill me with guilt or that sick, twisted sense of obligation. Instead, it felt like fuel. Pure, uncut power running through my veins. I pushed off the door, turning my back to it, walking deeper into my small, cluttered apartment. I grabbed my phone, still face down on the counter, and pulled up my banking app. I hadn't just cut them off financially. I had rerouted my direct deposits, closed the joint accounts my parents had once guilted me into opening, and flagged every automatic payment I had ever set up for them as fraudulent. No more car payments. No more monthly grocery fund. No more quiet, unspoken agreements that I would just cover this bill or that expense because we're family. They had taken advantage of my kindness for years, and now they would have to learn to stand on their own. As I scrolled through my transaction history, deleting and canceling every last connection I had to them, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen expecting another furious message from Kyle or my mother, but it wasn't. Lisa. Hey, just heard what happened. Are you okay? Do you need to talk? Lisa, my ex. The one person who had tried to warn me about my family's toxic grip, the one who had seen through their manipulations long before I did. We hadn't spoken in months, not since our messy, emotionally exhausting breakup. But seeing her name on my screen sent a strange, warm pulse through my chest. I hesitated for a moment, my thumb hovering over the screen, my mind flashing back to all the late-night arguments, the tear-filled conversations, the slow, painful realization that we just couldn't make it work. But then I tapped the message, typing back before I could second-guess myself. Me. Hey, I'm okay, just trying to clean up the mess. Thanks for checking in. The dots appeared almost instantly, her response coming back faster than I had expected. Lisa, you don't have to go through this alone. I know things ended badly between us, but I'm here if you need a friend. I stared at her message, the words blurring slightly as my eyes began to sting, the weight of everything I had been holding in for years pressing down on my chest. I blinked hard, forcing the tears back, and typed a quick reply. Me, thanks, I appreciate it. Maybe we can grab a coffee sometime. Another quick response, like she had been waiting for me to say it. Lisa, I'd like that. Just let me know when. I set my phone down. My heart still racing, my mind spinning with 1,000 half-formed thoughts, memories, and regrets. It felt strange reconnecting with someone I had once pushed away. Someone who had seen through my family's games long before I had the courage to do the same. As I moved around my apartment, tidying up the clutter that had somehow grown in the chaos of the past few days, my mind drifted back to the family home. The house I had just effectively reclaimed, the one place where I had always felt like a stranger, a guest in my own life. Maybe it was time to truly reclaim it, to make it mine, to strip away the memories of whispered conversations, backhanded compliments, and unspoken expectations, and turn it into something I could finally be proud of. I grabbed my laptop, pulling up a list of local contractors and interior designers, my fingers flying over the keys as I sketched out a rough plan in my head. New floors, fresh paint, a complete overhaul of every room that had ever felt like a trap, a prison disguised as a home. I would tear it all down brick by metaphorical brick until nothing remained of the life they had built on my back. As I scrolled through photos of sleek modern kitchens and minimalist living rooms, a strange, unfamiliar sensation crept over me. Hope. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of genuine, untainted hope, the kind that comes when you finally realize you're not just surviving but living. My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. Another message, this one from my mother. Her tone shifting from angry to desperate, the way it always did when she realized her old tricks weren't working. Mom, please don't do this. We're family. We can work this out. I stared at the message for a long, silent moment, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Then slowly, deliberately, I typed my response. Me, family isn't just about blood, it's about respect, and you lost mine a long time ago. I hit send, letting the words hang in the digital void, a final, irreversible declaration of independence. And as I sat there, my laptop still open to the renovation plans, the city lights casting long shadows across my apartment, I felt something shift deep inside me. A breaking of chains, a shattering of old rusted bonds. For the first time, I felt free. The days that followed felt like a strange, surreal dream. I moved through my tiny apartment with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. My footsteps almost buoyant on the creaky hardwood floors, the constant gnawing anxiety that had shadowed me for so long was gone, replaced by a calm, fierce determination. I threw myself into my plans to reclaim the family house, drafting emails to contractors, scheduling consultations, sketching out rough designs for each room. I deleted old family photos, stripped away every last remnant of the life I had left behind. Every painful reminder of the years I had spent as their silent, suffering benefactor. The messages from my family kept coming, each one more desperate than the last, but I ignored them, letting my phone buzz and vibrate against the countertop. The digital echoes of a life I had finally walked away from. Then one morning, my phone buzzed with a different kind of notification. An email from a law firm I didn't recognize. I frowned, swiping it open, my pulse spiking as I read the subject line. Notice of intent to file claim. Family property dispute. I felt the blood drain from my face, my heart hammering painfully in my chest as I scanned the message. My parents were threatening legal action claiming partial ownership of the house based on decades of familial support and joint contributions. I clenched my jaw, my hands shaking as I read through the thinly veiled threats, the veiled accusations, the subtle but unmistakable hints that they would drag this out, that they would bleed me dry in court if I didn't give them what they wanted. For a moment, the old fear surged up, the sick, twisting dread that had kept me in their grip for so long, the desperate, instinctive urge to back down, to apologize, to fold under the weight of their demands. But then, slowly, deliberately, I straightened, the anger rising like a dark, unstoppable tide, flooding every corner of my mind. No. Not this time. I opened my laptop, my fingers flying over the keys as I pulled up every scrap of paperwork I had ever filed. Every contract, every deed, every lease agreement. The house was in my name. I had made damn sure of that when I bought it, refusing to add them to the title, despite their constant pressure, their thinly veiled guilt trips. I spent hours combing through emails, bank statements, text messages, every scrap of digital evidence I had collected over the years, building my case, fortifying my defenses, hardening my heart against their manipulations. And then, once I had compiled everything into a neat, bulletproof package, I typed a short, blunt response to their lawyer. Subject: Re-notice of intent to file claim message. Dear Mr. Harper, thank you for your message. I have reviewed your client's claims and found them to be without merit. Attached you will find the property, deed, mortgage documents, and financial records clearly establishing my sole ownership of the property in question. Furthermore, I have included detailed records of all financial support I have provided to my parents and brother over the years, including rent-free housing, direct bank transfers, and various other expenses totaling well over $150,000. Should your clients wish to proceed with their claim, I will be prepared to countersue for reimbursement of these amounts, as well as legal fees and damages for emotional distress. Please advise your clients accordingly. Best, Adam Harper. I hit send. My heart pounding, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps as I leaned back in my chair staring at the glowing screen, the digital reflection of the life I had finally taken back. For a long moment, I just sat there, the room around me silent and still. The only sound, the soft, steady hum of my laptop's fan. Then slowly the tension drained from my shoulders, my heart rate slowing, my breath evening out as the reality of what I had just done sank in. I had drawn a line. A hard, unbreakable line, a final, irrevocable boundary that they would never cross again. And for the first time in years, I felt truly, completely free. 3 days later, my phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't a message from my parents or a threatening email from their lawyer. It was Lisa. Lisa. Hey, still up for that coffee? I felt a flicker of warmth. A small, hesitant spark of something I had almost forgotten how to feel. Hope. Me. Yeah, how about this Saturday? The dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, like she was struggling to find the right words. Lisa, sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. I set my phone down, my heart lighter than it had been in years. My mind already spinning with thoughts of fresh starts, second chances, the slow, painful, but ultimately liberating process of rebuilding a life from the ashes. As I closed my laptop, my eyes drifting to the half-empty moving boxes still stacked against the wall, I felt a strange, fierce satisfaction. A deep, unshakable certainty that I had finally taken the first unsteady steps toward a life that was truly mine. I had cut the cord, shattered the chains, and for the first time I was truly, undeniably free. And just like that, I took a deep breath, letting the cool, crisp air fill my lungs, my mind finally clear, my heart finally at peace. I had walked away from the wreckage and I was never going back. Story 2. We won't be at your wedding, we're occupied, on a sticky note. My dad scribbled it. In order to donate it, I destroyed it, then ripped up their $5 $200 rent agreement, disconnected my account from their utilities, and gave me the title to their automobile. We won't be at your wedding. We're occupied. Instead of texting or calling my dad, scribbled it on a sticky note. A bright yellow sticky note that looked like a grocery list was affixed to my refrigerator. Smug and crooked. I held the object as if it were evidence of something I should have known all along. Perhaps I did. Perhaps I had been aware of it for years and had simply chosen not to acknowledge it. Those 8 words are still being read. A battle could never cut me as cleanly as those 8 sentences. It was similar to learning that on paper you were never the kid we desired. I can still clearly recall the rest. I snatched the message and tore it into ribbons after tearing it once again. Then I picked up the folder containing the $5 $200 rent agreement I had arranged on their behalf. A bargain that allowed them to reside in a 3-bedroom apartment for half of its actual value. I destroyed that document, tore up the lease, and disconnected my account from all of the bills, gas, water, and electricity. They had been too arrogant to express gratitude for each silent debt. They said I didn't owe them. I took the automobile after that. The Mazda CX-5 from 2016. 2 years ago, I got them something to assist them move about. Since their credit was terrible, they registered under my name. I signed the title, drove it to the nearby shelter, and gave it to a nonprofit that provides transportation for unmarried mothers to doctor's visits. I had my hair done the same evening. That ought to have been it. However, the problem with folks like them is that they never leave you alone when you've had enough. They use you as the scapegoat for their failure and make you the antagonist of the tale they crafted. And for years, I allowed them to play the part of the financial crutch, the obedient idiot, and the quiet assistant. Up until that note, something about that sticky note bothered me. Or perhaps it awakened the part of me that still had a backbone. This is the account of what transpired next. This wasn't always me. On the first ring, I used to answer their calls. I used to fill up the gas tank before they realized it was low, and I would Venmo my mom $150 for groceries every other week, used to pay the Netflix subscription fee, the parking tickets my sister accrued and lied about, and the Spotify family plan. They owed me more than $12,000 at one point. I didn't mention it. Why would I? The good son was me, the trustworthy one. Oliver always manages to get things done. "We don't worry about him," they would remark. I took care of all the worrying so they didn't have to. When Dad lost his job 2 years ago, it all began. Too many complaints from clients led to a forced layoff, which he referred to as early retirement. Mom referred to it as a boon. She added, "Now we get to spend more time together." Bills increased as time went on, and more bills led to more texts saying things like, "Hey, we're a little short this month. Is there any chance you could pay the heating bill? This winter is cruel. Your sister's card has some problems. Would you mind lending us your backup?" It didn't stop. I had arranged a $5 $200 rent agreement that was meant to keep them afloat. My landlady provided the funding. One of my clients owed me a favor. They still want more, though. Claire, my sister, moved back home while she recovered. 14 months have passed since then. She went to Max with her lover. He played FIFA and vaped at the same time. In my former chamber, they slept, said that it was sentimental. When I first saw them in bed, I chuckled. I still have posters from my early years on the walls. My spirit seems to have been colonized. Then things began to vanish. It was little at first. For Dad's birthday, I placed a $100 Amazon gift card on the dining table. Then from the joint emergency account I had created to assist them, $300 disappeared. Gently, I asked. Once Dad became enraged. "Oliver, we're not thieves. Don't behave as though you have the authority to police us because of your money." I let it fall. But I began to listen. I came upon the Facebook post at that point. Claire was the one. She had posted a selfie from a dining establishment. Not just any eatery, Germaine. She used to call the fancy French restaurant stupid expensive. "My baby always spoils me," is the caption. Use the hashtag date night. Real. Guys pay for hashtags in the shot's backdrop. Somewhat blurred. My mother was seated at the adjacent table clutching a wine glass and laughing. I felt sick to my stomach. Using a fake email I created for my dad years ago to handle internet reservations. I do a reverse search of the reservation list. The $480 meal for the visitors was charged to the same card I used to cover their rent. Though I wasn't yet ready, I printed the receipt. I let it to continue because I wanted to know how deep it went. Claire inquired if I could assist her with her financial problem the next week. She said that an abusive ex had created phony accounts in her name, ruining her credit score. After giving her a sympathetic nod, I used a contact at a lending company to do a light check on her background. No deception. Don't use phony accounts. Purchase now. Pay later debts only. All for concert tickets and high-end skincare. All in her name. I didn't go up against her, not quite yet. The worst part comes next. The shame. A humorous video was shared by Dad on the family WhatsApp group. Me carrying a bag of goods as I leave a supermarket. He put a sticker that read, "Our errand boy," after zooming in. "Guess who's getting supper again," he captioned it. "Regards, Wallet." Lydia sent a weeping, laughing emoji and everyone laughed. "I'm glad someone remembers their role in the family," Uncle Paul wrote. Mom remained silent. "Claire, tell him to grab oat milk too," she said. "I'm leaving," I didn't answer. I simply saved everything. took a screen grab of the group conversation. The thread was exported. The video was uploaded. It was archived. A week later, the last straw, I received a notice a new utility account had been opened in my name. Their flat is at the same address. However, my card has just been unlinked. I gave the supplier a call. They claimed that a stored copy of my ID had been used to reactivate the account online. I looked through Dad's old iPad's internet history. My email and password autofill were the reason I was there the next time. They were regularly and shamelessly taking from me digitally. I recognized then that they didn't consider me a member of their family. After every withdrawal, they viewed me as an ATM that says, "I love you." I came over for what was meant to be a peaceful supper in the last moments before the explosion. Mom sat watching TV while singing to herself while preparing soup. Max and Claire had a TikTok video playing loudly. There was an envelope on the counter. It included a single sticky note with my name on it. "We won't be at your wedding. We're occupied. No justification, no background, just one more act of pettiness from them." I raised my head. Dad didn't recoil. "I assumed you would prefer it in writing," he said while enjoying a drink. Claire chuckled. "That weekend we're heading to the Algarve, bro, priorities." That was it. The switch flipped at that very time. I grinned. Went out in silence and then set fire to all the bridges they believed I would never venture to cross. They were unaware of my arrival. The invitation to supper had been sent out. Only family. However, the communication had already been intercepted by me. Mom submitted it to the old group thread by mistake. She didn't realize I was still in that one. I saw the guest list, the time, and the date. It was referred to as a celebration of us. In other words, everyone but me. The same establishment where my credit card was burnt through the last time was the scene on Saturday. Private space menu that was pre-ordered. Arrival champagne. I reserved the next table after using a fictitious identity to RSVP undermined. It was supposed to be my final ambush. But it wasn't the first I brought up. Claire's former partner, Theo is his name. The one she cursed, cheated on her, attacked her, ruined her life. He was tall, quiet, and not at all like what she had said. I sent him images and audio data from her own evidence folders on her hard disk. He didn't inquire as to why. "Tell me where and when we met." He stated simply. Half an hour prior to supper, I gave him copies of the audio recordings printouts and texts she had fabricated about him. He had something with him. A draft of a restraining order surprised me. He didn't file. She had frightened him. The opposite is not true. He nodded once and placed the papers in a black folder. I said, "Let's break their twisted game. We're being stopped by the host. My name is on the reservation next door." I answered with a smile, presenting her with my ID. "I'm going to join the family." Together. We went inside. The wine glass my mother was holding froze in midair. Claire let her phone fall. He simply blinked. "Dad?" Like if someone had struck him with a cerebral power failure, he got up too soon and said, "Oliver," I responded, "this timing is ideal. We appreciate you securing a seat." I took a chair out. Theo took a seat next to me. The flash drive fell on the table. I said, "Let's talk about family." I began by watching the video. I projected it onto the TV screen in the restaurant. Claire's voice, which she never imagined I would uncover, was pieced together from her audio files. She said in one footage, "I hope Oliver is left at the altar if he ever gets married." In another, traceable but distorted, "He isn't related. He provides funds. That's not the same." My mom let out a gasp. My dad hit the table with his fist. Nevertheless, the playback continued. Then the screen grabs appeared. The original text and Claire's revised versions were displayed side by side. She pretended that I had called her a parasite. In one thread, which was changed from a conversation in which I had said, "I hope you're okay." Theo opened his folder, laid out her plan complete with notes, photos, and a timeline she wrote herself titled, "If he leaves me." First item. Let it leak. False accusation of assault. The second item. He sent his employer screenshots. He is sympathetically destroyed by item number 3. My dad got back up. He yelled, "This is disgusting. Where did you purchase this?" I gave him a direct look. "Your previous laptop, the one you handed her? The drive was never wiped by her." He gave Claire a look. She had a pale complexion, frozen. I wasn't finished. "Let me introduce you to another visitor." From the entrance. I said, entered. The $5 $200 rental agreement was signed by the landlord. Marta, a clipboard was in her hand. She had printed the fake lease renewal that Dad had filed last month along with the account history, the one with my digital signature still on it. I said, I didn't sign this. A few weeks ago, I removed access. She nodded. And yet someone printed it, scanned it, and backdated the file to make it look valid. My mom's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. I looked at Dad. You forged my signature on a legal document. You owe us everything. He inquired. We gave you a life. I stood up slowly. No. You gave me dead silence and the kind of damage you have to unlearn in therapy. Then I pulled out the final piece, the sticky note. I scanned it, enlarged it, printed it on a glossy card. We won't be at your wedding, we're occupied. I held it up like a trial exhibit. This is how you RSVP'd. So let me repay the favor. I dumped 3 envelopes on the table inside legal notification of utility disconnection card title transfer paperwork. The car now listed under my name, a contribution certificate made in their name, their automobile presented to a facility that supports abuse sufferers. The room became quiet. Then Theo added quietly, She framed me, lied to all of you, and I'm bringing a legal claim tomorrow. Claire finally yelled, I hate you. She yelled at me. Dad surged toward me. Marta moved ahead of him. She remarked icily, You're lucky the lease fraud isn't being reported today. I look at the employees. Sorry for the scenario. We are about to depart, however. I leaned in my father's direction before leaving. Please do me a favor. I said, Please don't attach your next note to my refrigerator. Adhere it to your own reflection. The consequences were immediate. Theo, Claire's ex, posted a threat the evening following the meal. Dates, videos, screenshots, everything she had done to him. All of her plans. It became popular in our city within an hour. It arrived at her workplace around noon in the morning. She was without one. She sent me only one message that afternoon. Everything was completely upended by you. I didn't respond. I sent it to Theo just now, to his court folder who inserted it. Dad went underground. His Facebook account vanished. His LinkedIn account crashed. But not before I informed his former employer about the fraudulent lease through an anonymous tip and supporting paperwork. Marta did file a digital fraud report against him. The inquiry is ongoing, but the police have not yet filed charges. Their apartment's utilities severed in the interim. I pressed the kill switch precisely 72 hours after the altercation. The electricity is off. Turn off the gas. Turn off the internet. It must have been deafeningly quiet. They may do one of 2 things. Look for new houses, or at least acknowledge who has been keeping the lights on for the past 5 years. Option 3 was their choice on Facebook. Krish. According to my mom's post, my family should forgive rather than destroy. Just because you make errors doesn't mean you cut off your parents. There were differing opinions. A few family members expressed their typical sympathy. I'm very sorry you're experiencing this. Others didn't. Did you ever say Oliver wasn't invited to Christmas because you didn't want to deal with his face? A cousin retorted. There were 340 likes on that remark. In order to begin forgiving after the free rent expires, another was added. I understand. Within 1 hour, Mom took down the post. It's too late. The entire event had previously been screenshotted and published to my public archive. Yes, I made a whole Google Drive folder and gave it a name after going public. Family is like this on the inside. A video shows a father yelling at a woman half his age at the restaurant. Screenshots of Claire's forged messages side by side. She received frame evidence of $27,000 in payments over 3 years in the form of the sticky note. My dad's words, "You owe us everything." On audio. I refrained from screaming, didn't plead for pity. I gently let the facts come to light. Nice, chilly, unquestionable. After sharing the link on Reddit and Twitter, I anonymously submitted it to Quiet Cutoffs, a local site that supports individuals who avoid toxic relationships. It exploded. I was requested to conduct podcast interviews in a matter of days. It was described as the most surgical family split I've ever seen by a 700K subscriber YouTuber. As soon as the narrative was clear, I refrained from speaking in public. The number of calls on my phone skyrocketed. Dad's voicemail began calmly and then became erratic. People are turning against us because of you. You have ruined your own reputation. Nobody will love a man who betrays his family. I labeled the one I preserved. The last danger, Claire texted 3 times. You prevail. I hope your ideal little wedding goes well. I want to file a slander lawsuit against you. She didn't. Why? Because I made a new post 2 days after she threatened me. An image of the car's donation certificate that I returned. Framed, displayed on the wall of a Portland women's shelter. Every time I was told that my purpose was to serve, I captioned it, "People who genuinely matter are now helped by my name." I was greeted by the shelter and asked if I wanted to volunteer. Yes, I replied. I unlinked every account I had ever had with my family bank on the same day. Cosign is no longer there. Phone service was discontinued. Even the previous HBO Max login was deleted by Apple Family Sharing. Deactivated mid-episode was still used by my dad. I broke all of our financial and digital ties to them, created a Substack, and replaced them with something new. In case they wonder why there are tales of silent scapegoats, invisible children, and courteous exit wounds in just 2 weeks. 3 essay features 1 syndication deal and 9,000 subscribers. The second post was called "The Sticky Note That Started a Revolution." I opened with a single line. They said they were busy on my wedding day, so I got busy making sure they'd never attend anything else again. They never made it to the wedding. Of course they tried a week before the date. I got an envelope in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. My mother's inside a printed email thread, one between her and a local pastor she knew from when I was a kid. She was begging him to intervene to help bring her son back to the fold. In her words, he's being brainwashed by internet strangers. He's lost. We just want to see our boy get married. There was no apology or no mention of what they'd done. Just this fantasy where I was the one who'd gone off script. The pastor didn't answer. That letter was framed by me. In my new home office, I hung it. A plaque with the words, "Busy Forever," next to it. It was a straightforward wedding. Only 42 people. No blood relations, no drama. My wife wore gold as she walked down the aisle. Not white, since we made the decision that we would not act as though this were a fairy tale. We dressed like survivors, and it wasn't... In our vows, I didn't say that I would always love her. I vowed to never be quiet around her the way I was with my family, and to love her loudly, to never beg her to get smaller so I can get bigger. Claire's ex-boyfriend. Theo was my best man. Yes, we did become true friends. This was how he concluded his speech. Some people have family ties from birth. Others struggle to get inside one. This is the one I pick every day. The cheers were louder than they ought to have been. Perhaps because I had never believed it before. 3 days after the wedding, my father gave me one last chance. There was a voicemail for me. "No, hi there, no, well done." Just him breathing heavily. "Then you're making a name for yourself now. But don't forget, your last name still comes from me." That was it, his version of a threat. As if legacy was a leash, I uploaded it to my Substack caption. "When the man who abandoned you still thinks he owns your initials." That post went viral. People started tagging me in photos of torn-up sticky notes. One therapist printed the article and hung it in her office. I realized, then I hadn't just survived them. I'd written the ending. I never saw Claire again. But I did get a letter from her lawyer. She wanted the car back. The one I donated said it was emotionally distressing to lose something symbolic. I mailed back one thing, a USB drive on it. The video of her laughing with Max in my childhood bedroom saying, "Oliver is basically my walking credit card, it's kind of cute." No reply. After that. 6 months later, I opened a new business account. Not a tech startup, not a podcast. A publishing imprint named Sticky Note Press tagline. We print stories. The family want first book. My own title, Do Not Expect Us at Your Wedding. We're occupied. Dedication page to the version of me who stayed silent. He deserved better. The book hit number 3 on small nonfiction charts. I didn't do a book tour, but I did one interview local radio. When they asked me, "Would you ever reconcile?" I smiled and said, I did reconcile with the truth. They were never my people. I changed my number the next day. No announcement, no text blast, just silence. I stood at the post office, held the old SIM card over the trash and let it fall. No one even knew it was gone. That's when it hit me. They weren't calling anymore, not because they understood, because they finally realized I don't respond to ghosts. I live quietly now. New apartment. No shared mailboxes. No shared accounts. No shared pain. My wife and I keep Sunday mornings sacred. We drink strong coffee, sit on the balcony, and sometimes when a sticky note flutters off a neighbor's fridge and lands on ours. We both laugh, because now when I see those yellow squares, I don't think of family. I think of fire, and how sometimes it's not enough to cut the cord. You have to burn the script story free. She added, I'm proud of all my children except the losers sitting at the table. During the Mother's Day meal, everyone chuckled. Happy Mother's Day, Mom, I said as I got up and set a black box on the table. She screamed a few seconds after I went outside and returned the fancy automobile I had given her when she opened it at last. With the exception of the losers seated at the table, I'm proud of all of my kids. My mom made that toast on Mother's Day. She spoke word for word while holding her champagne glass aloft, and the rest of the table erupted in laughter as if she had just revealed the greatest joke ever. The loser was me. I didn't flinch at all. I simply stared at her at the sparkle in her eye that said, yes, I know what I just said, and no, I don't regret it, and at the lines around her lips that always tightened when she was going to embarrass me. Melanie, one of my sisters, snorted into her drink. Greg, her spouse, slapped the table. Aaron, my younger brother, bent down and said, dude, don't be too serious. Mom is simply being a mom. Nobody appeared uneasy. Nobody raised their voice. Nobody spoke. Hello, that's sufficient. Only when they wanted me to be invisible did I become invisible when the bills needed to be paid. Melanie's vehicle needed new brakes when Aaron's rent was due. For a single instance, I became the family's pillar. But I was the joke on Mother's Day. I had no intention of creating a commotion. What I was going to undertake was not something I had intended to do. However, something changed within me. Then something last. I extracted a black box from beneath the table and set it squarely in front of her plate. Greetings on Mother's Day. Calmly. I said. She gave it a blink. Perhaps confused? Worried. Of course. What is this? Her tone immediately became guarded as she questioned. Everyone leaned in. You'll see. I said. After that, I got up, straightened my jacket, and left the home. I was in her driveway. 10 minutes later, I unlocked the fancy automobile I had given her the previous year, the one she boasted about to her book club and told her friends her favorite kid had purchased for her. She never identified me to them. The second key was mine. Like I was doing an errand. I got in, turned on the engine, and drew away quietly and gently. When she opened the box, she let out a scream. Though I didn't hear it, I had a clear mental image of it. Her high-pitched voice reverberated throughout the home. She found the one picture I left her by, scratching at the box's borders with her immaculately manicured fingertips. 10-year-old myself on the back with a bouquet of flowers I purchased with money I earned from forgoing lunch for a week and a handmade Mother's Day card. I didn't think I mattered to you until now. That was the start of it. The reckoning, not the conflict. 2 weeks following Mother's Day, nobody spoke. No texts, no calls. Melanie didn't even post anything ambiguous on Facebook, which was odd coming from someone who couldn't go 20 minutes without sharing her kale smoothie or emotional status with the world. The stillness was then broken by Greg. I got a mail from him. That automobile issue was a complete catastrophe. Dude, perhaps offer an apology. Express regret. They deliberately embarrassed me in front of a whole table. I laughed. I didn't respond, even though I was expected to feel bad for returning something I had paid for in full. I also didn't block him. What they tried next was what I hoped to see. They tried too. My father called me 3 days later, but he didn't say sorry or inquire about my well-being. The voicemail only contained one sentence. We could use some assistance with the tuition for errands if you're done being an attention seeker. I almost dropped my phone because I was laughing so hard. The golden boy Aaron. The family's future. The person who simply requires time to solve problems. It had taken him 6 years to figure things out. In the meantime, I was sending him money for textbooks he never even purchased and paying off his credit cards. I declared myself finished. I thought it was true. However, I then made the error of turning around. Not for them, for Grandma. It was her 83rd birthday, the one member of that family who never passed judgment on me. She resided in a modest home just outside of town, where the air smelled of soap and boiled tea, and the grass always appeared freshly cut. She offered me hard candy peppermint and memories without ever asking for anything else. Simple party supplies included plastic tablecloths, foldable chairs, and finger food. It wasn't until I heard it that I realized who I was approaching. The kitchen was where they were. I went to get some ice. I had no intention of spying. When I heard my name, I simply stopped Melanie loud as ever. "He's not family. He's just a wallet with feelings." The room erupted in laughter. I heard Greg chuckle and say, "Well, feelings don't pay rent then, Mom." "My mother?" She sighed. Tired and dramatic like she always did when she wanted pity. "I just wish he'd learn to take a joke. He always makes it about him. It's not like we forced him to give us anything." And then Dad? The final blow. He did it to feel important. Let him feel small for once. I stood there with the ice bucket in my hands, just stood, not moving, not breathing. They hadn't seen me. Not yet. When I finally walked into the room, it went dead silent. They didn't even try to hide it. No excuses, no laughter, just guilt, and then the usual cover-up. "Oh, there you are. We were just talking about—" "Yeah," I said, "I heard everything." Melanie blinked. Man tried to reach for my arm. "Don't twist it, sweetheart. You were just reminding each other how useful I used to be." I said, "Don't worry. Message received. I didn't leave. Not yet." Grandma still hadn't had her cake, but I watched. I watched how no one looked me in the eye for the rest of the night, however, and handed me a plate like he was passing a peace offering. How Greg tried to start a conversation about the stock market as if pretending nothing had happened would reset the timeline. They knew I'd heard. They also knew I wasn't going to yell, I wasn't going to cry, and that scared them more than anything, but they weren't done. 1 week later, I got an email from my bank. A transfer had been attempted using an old joint account I had with Dad, something we opened when I helped him refinance the house 4 years ago. It had been dormant. I'd forgotten it existed. They hadn't. I called the bank, froze the account, flagged the attempt. Then I drove to their house, not to confront, to watch. They were having dinner. Tacos from the smell. I didn't knock. I didn't say anything. I just stood across the street, hands in my pockets, while the windows glowed with warm family light. I wasn't in it, but I used to be. They didn't see me until Melanie stepped outside to take out the trash. She froze when she saw me, then grinned like nothing had ever happened. "You're being theatrical again," she replied. Inside, "It's Taco Tuesday." I stepped up to her. "Not near." "Just enough." "You attempted to steal from me," I said. "You joked about me, used me, mocked me. And now, I'm meant to grin over tacos," she shrugged. "Families battle." I leaned in. "No, families break." Then I turned around. She didn't follow. However, she texted the next morning, "Don't take any risks, you'll be sorry." She was correct. Something crazy was going to happen to me. But now that I've seen the truth, I won't ever regret it. I wasn't related to them. Their plan was me. The game was ended. A week prior to the event, they sent me a note. Only one phrase. "You are missed. This time, let's celebrate Mother's Day properly." I took a while to respond. 3 days passed as I waited. I then responded in writing. "All right. One meal. Only family." I was creeping back. They thought that the automobile and the black box were just having a fit, that all they needed to get their tiny puppet boy back was a good lunch and some kind words. At 6, I arrived. As usual, the table was set. Swan candles, folded napkins, and wine glasses that were immaculate. I once gave my mother a pearl necklace, which she wore. Melanie had that same smug expression and was wearing a low-cut dress. Like her devoted little pet, Greg sat next to her as though he had merited it. My father took the throne seat in the middle. Aaron was the only one who appeared truly anxious. My mother remarked, "We are very glad you came. You were truly missed, and perhaps last time we went too far, or we may not have gone far enough." "Sit down," my father murmured. "But family is more important than pride, isn't it?" Quickly, she added, "Let's not harbor resentment." I didn't respond. I waited. She lifted her glass. "It's time to flip the page tonight. All of my kids make me proud, including those who got lost. Everybody makes errors." Quiet. Then there was a voice in the corridor. "I apologize for being late." When Rachel entered the room, everyone turned. Melanie's former partner, the one she referred to as unstable, the person she vowed would destroy her life, the one she spent years lying about, Midship? Melanie froze. Why is she in this place? She gave a hiss. She's having supper here. Calm with the family? I said. With poise and composure, Rachel sat next to me and took a little envelope out of her purse. Gently, she set it on the table. She said I've been silent long enough. However, I was asked to speak the truth here. Leaning forward, my father was about to snarl. However, Rachel did it before him. She remarked, glancing directly at my mother. Mrs. Harris, over wine in January. This is what you told me about your son. His feelings serve as his leash. When he feels bad about this, he pays. He isn't related. He's a tactician. I look at you and Melanie. I stated that when you said that you were unaware that I was standing behind the wall of the corridor. For once, make him feel insignificant. Melanie was the first to blow up. She's telling lies. It's a setup. To surprise us, you brought her here. Is this what you're doing again? You require assistance. Do you want to discuss assistance? I interrupted her. I took out a printed bank statement from inside my jacket. A wire transfer is shown here. I'll transfer $12,500 to your account. Not by me, but approved. I moved it over the table. It's not an error. That is deception. My dad got up quickly. This is treachery. He let out a bark. To make peace, we came here. You also introduced this snake. By that time, my mother had begun to cry, but it was the kind of tears that soap opera actresses do us. Not so much as to ruin their makeup, but enough to look tragic. She muttered, I'm not sure what you want from us. I got up. I said, I don't want anything. Not your calls, not your apologies, not your shame. Distance is what I want. I gave them all a direct look. I am no longer your son. I am the result of your actions. I then took one more item out of my jacket, a legal envelope that has been sealed. All joint accounts have been formally terminated. Access to my company. Lost the trust. Bears my name revised. Grandpa made sure of it before he passed. Melanie. Removed dad. Erased. I dropped the envelope in front of my mother's glass. This is your inheritance today. Emptiness just like the respect you offered me. Then I brought out an old snapshot 10-year-old me with a flower and a homemade card. The last time I ever felt it was important. One for each of you, I replied, tearing it in half and setting the pieces on the table. I then left. I was not followed. Nothing. There was only a lengthy, choking quiet at the entrance. I took one final glance back. There was no anger on their faces. They were destroyed. I didn't become angry. I didn't make an internet post. There was no speech from me. Over the next 8 days, I opened a spreadsheet and my laptop. A buddy of mine who is a certified public accountant, and I sat down, and not of their life, but of mine. We create a list, a thorough audit. Aaron's semester. Tuition is $14 or $300. I just made the payment till he was settled. It appears that he has adapted to failure rather well. Melanie's automobile, which has her name on the bumper stickers, is leased under my name for $7,800, just until her own is approved, she added. 3 years have passed since then. Mom's medical bills came to $2,400. Her promise that she will take care of it later was weakened by a dozen copays and specialist appointments she scheduled. She never even inquired as to whether I had extra coverage. 18,000 cash wire transfers. Venmo and direct transactions are all possible. Assist with rent. The refrigerator broke. All I have to do is finish this month. You would think they would be living like kings with all the money I provided them. However, they still manage to appear impoverished while speaking affluent $650 in presents. Holidays made up. Birthdays and anniversaries. In my drunken anger, I purchased my parents a new bed after my father destroyed the previous one. Congratulations on your engagement, Melanie. Weekend errands at the spa. I make it through my first sushi supper lesson. It was all secured with timestamps, screenshots, receipts, and even some text message printouts. Is it possible for you to email it tonight? The landlord is complicating matters. Mom is going to flip out if I ask her. Only till the next week. 44 hours. 150 hours, 47 in total. It's not a symbolic figure, not rounded. Accurate, chilly, tidy. I gave my lawyer the document. A quiet man when necessary. Brutal. We had attended the same school. I had once covered the cost of his bar prep course. That he never forgot. "Would you like the entire sum?" he inquired. "Or give them some respect?" "Every cent," I said. No drama, no adornment, no intrigue, just the facts. The letters were certified 4 days later. To my dad, 1. To my mom, 1. To Melanie, 1. Subject: unpaid family debt. This isn't retaliation. This brings things to a close. A confirmed breakdown of the financial assistance provided from 2016 to 2023 is included. Complete pay: 44, 150, 47. Kindly use a documented bank transfer to send the entire amount within 90 days. Harris Oliver. Melanie was the first to break. "You must be joking with me. Gifts are what you're counting." She continued to send texts. "You require assistance." "Really? This family is being destroyed by you." I didn't respond. I ignored and didn't read what she had to say. My father dialed my lawyer. "Try speaking in a firm tone. We are blood. Your own father cannot be sued." That didn't sit well with him. "Yes, you can. Particularly if you have legal standing and supporting documentation, Mom." She didn't give a call. She sent a letter that was smudged where she must have wiped her eyes and written in careful cursive ink, "You were given life by me. When you were unwell, I stayed up with you. For you I prayed. You sent attorneys now. No responsibility, no apologies, only guilt." She always enjoyed it most when it was weaponized. We formally filed legal claims on day 21. Melanie claimed emotional injury. In her countersuit said that I tricked her into taking money. She became heartbroken. The judge seems unimpressed. Simply read the transaction record. In less than an hour, the written acknowledgments and SMS messages rejected her argument. Dad didn't answer. We filed for judgment by default 3 weeks later. One leans toward a flag on his primary checking account and garnishment warnings. Mom failed to appear in court. Didn't send in a reply. But the next week when she went to the drugstore to pay for her prescription, it refused. A monthly percentage had begun to be deducted from her retirement payments. The same way they docked parts of me for years. I refrained from boasting. I refrained from screaming. I said so. I didn't discuss it at all. As payments came in, I just kept an eye on the bank. Melanie was the first to pay, most likely to halt the bleeding. Only after understanding that the lien might damage his credit did Dad pay second. The last payment was Mom's. Her silver tea set was sold. The wedding photo. A cousin told me that she sobbed as she was wrapping it. I felt no vindication. On day 91, I felt clean. I went to my bank and took out precisely $44.150 in cash. Hundreds, 50s, 20s packed neatly. I lined the bottom of a matte black lockbox with velvet and put it inside. One note was added on top. "This isn't cash. This is responsibility." It wasn't sent to them by me. It wasn't burned by me. I put it under my name in a private deposit box, as a signpost, not as a prize. Evidence that my escape cost money. After that, I gave $5,000 to a charity organization that helps individuals who have experienced financial abuse in their families. They sent a little thank you message and a receipt via email. That was all the appreciation I required. I didn't rejoice. No brand new vehicle, not a single toast. No mic drop. I said to myself, I don't want revenge. As I sat down at the same desk where I had skipped supper 5 years prior to send Melanie the rent money, I desired to regain my life. It has now been fully paid. I didn't relocate to another city. I didn't start over in Montana, Bali, or any other place where people go to recover. I remained exactly where I was. Everything else was different. My phone didn't buzz with emergencies for the first time in my life. I stopped receiving late-night texts from Aaron requesting assistance. Mom won't have any more missed calls that weren't primarily for checking in. No more voice notes from Melanie claiming she only wanted to talk when in reality she required a payment. The instantaneous hush was beautiful. Noise wasn't necessary for me to supply one. Absence was necessary to demonstrate my escape. I began to sleep deeper and better, since I wasn't rushing out to clean up other people's mess. My flat for once remained tidy. The food tasted better. The volume of the music increased. It felt simpler to breathe even the air. Because they changed, I was no longer free, I no longer needed them. Thus, I was free, then there were reverberations. I was stopped outside a store by an old family acquaintance. She had a tight grin. "Your mother is ill?" Perhaps I interrupted her with a glance, I thought. She made another attempt. "Families quarrel, you know?" But now, deep below, "No." I buried it deep down like I mentioned. She inhaled, blinked, and walked away. I took a storage container filled with items I hadn't used in years. Out of my closet one afternoon, among her photo albums, cards, and discarded ornaments, I found a framed family portrait. It was our final trip together. Despite my slumped shoulders, I was grinning. In my own life, I appeared to be a visitor. I tossed it aside. Not out of rage and tranquility, I packed up 3 pieces of furniture the same week. I purchased a coffee table for my folks I put together. Aaron's bookshelf. He didn't ever read them. When Melanie's dining chair broke, I offered her one. They were given to a shelter by me. Now let someone else take a seat on them, someone who may be appreciative. After that, I took an action I hadn't taken in years. I removed all of the numbers associated with them from my phone. Not just your mother, Dad, and my siblings. Those cousins who remained silent, the man on the other side of the table who made fun of me, the uncle who refused to pick a side. Lost. They weren't blocked by me. I simply wiped them out of my future. I ran across my dad in a parking lot a month later. He was packing his car's trunk with groceries. Of course, not the SUV. That was a long time ago. He turned to face me, halted and opened his mouth a little. Perhaps to talk, perhaps to pretend to grin. I continued to walk. I didn't slow down. I didn't even look back when I passed him. Silence, is that? I had never yelled anything so loud. I saw Melanie a week later. She and a man I didn't recognize were seated at an outside cafe. I'm laughing, making gestures, acting. She may or may not have noticed me, but I saw her and felt nothing. No resentment, no rage, not even discomfort right there, as if she were a scene I had watched too many times before. Quietly. The last closing occurred. I entered a coffee shop that I hadn't visited since the previous year. The same one when I felt embarrassed in front of others and sat across from them on Mother's Day, the day they departed. After placing my tea order, I sat down near the window. The chair and table are identical. But suddenly everything was different. My jaw was relaxed and I didn't have any pain behind my ribs. The next insult won't be counted down. I glanced toward the seat on the other side, the one they used to all sit in, and I didn't picture them in it for the first time. It was simply a blank mind. I sipped, grinned, and glanced outside. It used to hurt to sit in this seat. It's all mine now. I didn't change, but they did. And it was sufficient.